the general direction we're heading as a society is continued hyper fractalization of culture, which is subcultures and subcultures and subcultures, and people find those subcultures and they kind of create their own universes. And inside of those universes, there are rules, and there's influencers, and there's status, and that keeps breaking further and further apart, and you get this web, and it keeps going out and out and out. And so this culture is so far away from this culture, they just don't even understand each other, right? And I think if you back it up 100 years, we had much more of a monoculture. Of course, there was individual branches of it, but it wasn't that far apart.
Yeah.
We're getting further and further and further.
But if you back it up 200 years, it was more like that.
The individual subcultures?
Yeah.
Where?
Super hyper localized in Asia, Europe, America. We were able to not cross-pollinate.
A villager in, or like someone who's maybe working in a factory in France was very similar to the other person that was working in a factory in France.
In France.
Yeah.
But somebody working in Paris was very different to somebody working in Leon.
Yeah,
like,
but they were maybe they all had a common faith, and
usually it's the religion. The only common thing was this religion. Yeah.
And so now, like, I'm actually very curious about this because I think Christianity.
Well, even it's just like, let's look at Europe as a whole. Consider Europe. Like before the EU, before World War I, like it was so distinct in such a small area, right?
Yeah.
And there were all these unique, and then within the villages, there were like.
But within that culture, it was a monoculture.
It was a top down for sure. Yeah.
And so with this hyperfractalization, I think we're also entering the speed of cycles increasing, which creates this boom bust phenomenon, which is kind of what you're referencing. And so as the speed of the cycles increase, because the value comes from attention, and attention is fickle, and it evaporates very quickly.
Ephemeral as fuck.
It's ephemeral, and it just kind of bounces up and down, and it's hyper extraction. It's hyper extraction from that group. And I don't know what the solution is to that. I think that's just kind of the general direction everything is heading. And it's also heading that way because we're entering a world where AI will create hyper customized versions of reality for everybody. I think about this a lot. We each have a different Netflix account, and our Netflix accounts have different algorithms that show us different content. Okay. In the next 10 years, I would not be surprised if on a Netflix earnings call, they talk about their new hyper customization of individual shows, where they show Jared Nations the same shows they show Sky King, but your show has different music than mine, has a slightly different ending than mine, it has a slightly different character. Maybe the male characters in mine are female in yours, or maybe they're different races or something like that, whatever. And they talk about how they've increased engagement by 25% by this hyper customized real-time generated content algorithm that they've built. And so you and I watch the same show, maybe at the same time, that has different characters, different music, potentially even a slightly different ending. And so when you used to watch a show, you could go and talk about it, like, oh my God, that was so crazy when that part happened. What happens then? You're like, oh, like, no, that wasn't how my show went.
Yeah. In some ways, though, I actually feel like that's way more human, because how many times you've had conversations with people who they watch the same thing as you and they see something completely different. Like, that is such a human fucking thing.
Yeah, but you still watch the same thing. And so then you could have a discussion about why you saw it differently. But if we actually just saw something different, that's broken.
I don't. It doesn't allow us to come to the table and have a discussion about what we saw. Because we don't have the same basic things.
So once again, people will all of a sudden be further and further and further and further and further apart from their neighbors. Which I think is one of the core problems that we have, is these subcultures and subcultures and subcultures create distance between people. And what we're missing, at least from my perspective, is bringing people together. Like what unifies people? Like what common, it may not even be like what interests are you, but like what common values unify us as a country, as a city, as a friend group, as a family. I think that's really important to find.
I actually really love this like crazy bifurcation and like just decentralization of culture, but I do wish we just had one, like even if it was just like the 10 Commandments or one central thing. Like in my mind, like if we could just all aim towards like aiming up, like and it's like cool, we all want our kids to, like, this is the problem with people having less kids, because I feel like that can almost solve it. It's like you want to have a better future for your kids.
Children.
maybe it's just children, because like I think it's cool to have different cultures. I love that so much, and I love being able to bounce around cultures. You know what I mean? But I want us to all be like hoping that the future will be better than the past, and like at least having some sort of sense that even if we disagree on how to get there, we can come back to the same outcome as the goal.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. One, why are people not having as many kids as they used to, and I guess maybe what's I spent a lot of time thinking about isn't that one piece specifically, but
I think I spent a lot of time thinking about the one piece as well.
Well, what is the hierarchy of culture? What's the culture pyramid, the flow chart of culture of like what's upstream of that, and what's upstream of that, and so what is upstream of this end state, which seems like is a post-industrial, service-based economy, highly online culture that creates a society that doesn't want to have more children, where it creates a society where the belief that the future will be worse than it was in the past. And that's a really, I don't know if there is an answer, but I haven't certainly found it.